Join us every weeknight at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern. The Intrepid radio program, a Scotty Roberts Productions broadcast.
Hey folks, welcome to the program tonight. I'm your host, Scotty Roberts. This is my show, the Intrepid broadcast, or as you've known it all along, the Intrepid radio program. We're no longer a radio broadcast, though, because we're no longer broadcasting over on Odyssey Radio, which has been taken down over the last few months. And we are now broadcasting solely over on YouTube. So come and watch my podcast now over on youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. You can also catch this show in several different places. You can catch it over on my Facebook page and a couple of different places on my Facebook page. And I think we just came live over on my Instagram page. And you can catch it at my Patreon page and patreon.com/Scotty Roberts. And so I think, and you can also get it at X or Twitter X, and you can pick up the show live over there as well. However, the only place to get the best chat room is on the YouTube channel. And so come on into the YouTube channel where you can join the chat room. You can chat in the other places, but it's not hooked up to the main chat in any of those other places. So people aren't going to see your chat, and you aren't going to see other people's other than mine. So come on over to the YouTube channel if you want to chat with us and join the fellow Intrepids. And let's see what else we got. Just say hello to the people that are already starting to stream in to the chat room over on the YouTube channel. Elderberry, I see you, and I just put everything with this new keyboard. You know how I said the other day I got a new keyboard? I think on Sunday I told you this baby right here. Well, it's kind of fun, but the way I have always set my hands around my keyboard, like here's my old keyboard right here. This one. Look how tiny it is. It's a little Apple keyboard, wireless. And I would sit my hands around it, and I'd type, and I'd do my stuff. Now this one, the way it's configured is so big, I keep hitting buttons on the corners. So I typed the whole thing out once, and my pinky finger hit the top and hit the escape button, and I erased everything I did. I said, you got to be kidding me. So I've got to get used to that. So I just put things away accidentally. Now they're back. So I see you're all already over there starting to talk about the topic for tonight. I see Roger Rabbit and Elderberry and Susie Q. You're the only three out of many other people that are out there watching already that are in the chat room. Come on over into the YouTube chat room if you want to join the conversation that way. And of course, we'll open it up in a little bit for your calls to come right into the studio line. You can come on audibly, or you can come on with your picture on your video and join us. We got people that do that every day. Field Guy's here. I see Field Guy. And some of the conversation going on already. You did not see the graphic unless you saw the graphic in the promo. I could not get the graphic to load on here tonight either. Some wonky things going on with my computer. I don't think anybody's watching me, especially over at StreamYard where I broadcast. So I've tried 3 times to upload the graphic like I normally do. I have the graphic at the beginning of the show. It will not. I went in and I reconfigured it and resaved the graphic, and it still wouldn't load up. So if it were like Facebook or YouTube that were in charge of that, I'd say there might be something fishy going on, but this is StreamYard. So yeah, there was no graphic tonight, Field Guy. I could not get it up into. There's a graphic for the promo. It's over on YouTube and over on Facebook, but it will not load into my StreamYard tonight. Even when I've reconfigured it. So something's fishy going on with the graphic. I don't know that anybody's doing anything. So yeah, great. Yeah, this is the first time in 4 years that since I've started using this program that I could not upload a graphic was tonight. So the graphic tonight we're talking about. I've got it. The title is "Spread Too Thin," and the agency is stretched thin with lack of manpower. So we're being told, and so for some of the things to have happened at the Trump rally on Saturday and the attempted assassination on Saturday, there's so much going on. And I'm not going to overwork this point over this week unless new wild information comes out. We talked about it yesterday on Sunday, and we'll talk about it a little bit tonight. I have looked and listened to some of the people that are talking about these things. Travis Thorpe is here, by the way. He's listening in the background on low, trying to get his 2-year-old to sleep. She inherited his rebellious genes. I understand that. So, I want to talk about superficially. I can't dig too deep because I don't have the resources to dig too deep. I talk to Travis if I want digging deep on this kind of stuff. But since he can't be here right away, if at all tonight, I'm just going to hit the superficials, the things I'm finding in the news. If you do a little bit of research, some of the conspiracy theories I'm hearing. By the way, did you hear that one of the conspiracy theories that's being offered up by the left, it's usually the right they blame for having these conspiracy theories. One of theirs is that Trump wasn't shot at all, that it was a bullet hit the glass of the teleprompter and a shattered piece of shard cut his ear as it was flying through the air. Of course, they've got a picture that shows the bullet back behind Trump's head that just grazed his ear. So you didn't miss too much yet, Jason. JP has joined the chat room. And so that's one of the conspiracy theories. And the one I saw was in a more psychological article. And the guy, you could tell he just wanted to come out and say, this was not what it was. The conspiracy, it was a shattered piece of glass and so on. But of course, they have yet to produce the shattered teleprompter. So, and it wasn't in any of the pictures as the president was being hauled off stage. So it's interesting. So what I wanted to cover tonight and talk about tonight was all the stuff that's going on right now about the Secret Service being spread too thin is one of the accusations that's being made. But before we get, and I want to talk about, there was a former sniper who I saw. He's being interviewed everywhere, but we're going to bring his story into this and tell what he thought happened with the shooting. And but before we do any of this, I want us to take a moment because a lot of people at first weren't focusing on this and nobody knew his name. But there's a hero at the Trump rally, the victim Corey Compatore, and he died shielding his family. And he would have done it again. His friend said that's the kind of person he was. Have you all heard anything about Corey Compatore? Corey Compatore dedicated his life to helping other people, and he gave it, saving his own family when a gunman attacked a Trump rally on Saturday. And this was, of course, in Bethel Park and Pennsylvania. And the volunteer firefighter who died shielding his wife and daughter from a sniper's bullets intended for the former president, Donald Trump, during a rally in Butler County, is being remembered as a selfless girl dad and church-going family man who put others before himself on a regular basis. He has 2 daughters. That's why they call him girl dad. And Corey Compatore, 50 years old, he died on Saturday night while shielding his wife and his family from the gunfire after a 20-year-old man snuck onto a roof and started shooting at Trump during a rally in Butler. And it's just so typical of him the way it all happened with protecting his wife and his daughter and just throwing himself on top of them when they heard the shooting, said Eileen Shemansky, whose children grew up playing soccer alongside Compatore's daughters. And he was an all-around good guy that was always there to lend a hand and support not just his own children, but all the other kids who were friends of their girls and on the team. And he had just he had a just give it your all attitude, and a lot of kids respected him for that. Just always being there, supporting, giving those pep talks to get them going. It's going to be a big loss, his neighbor says. And so their families have been close for years due to their girls' common interest in travel soccer. And although Compatore worked long hours and volunteered to battle flames in his downtime, he never missed a game or a practice, she said. We didn't think it was true at first. When my daughters called me crying, she said, then we saw his wife and daughter on the news when they were tending to him. It was just a sad thing to see, so sad. But I know he would have done it again in the heartbeat if it came down to it. And it makes a difference when you're there in the stands to cheer them on, she said. The girls, you could see it in their faces. They just opened up with him, and he would travel for away tournaments. He and his wife were always there, always being there to support them. Now, both their daughters are in their 20s now, and he taught them to be strong. So I'm sure they'll be there to help their mom work through this. That's what the neighbor finished saying. Now, the Secret Service agents shot and killed the suspect, Thomas Matthew Crooks, within moments of his first shot, but not before he killed Compatore and wounded 2 more bystanders, according to authorities. Remember, this all took place in a split second, and all these shots rang out. Trump himself said that a bullet tore through part of his right ear and was pictured with blood on the side of his head as agents led him off stage. Before he got into his motorcade, he raised a fist, prompting cheers from the crowd. And he was yelling out, "Fight!" Now, Corey Compatore, he died a hero. This is Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro told reporters on Saturday after speaking with Compatore's wife, Helen. Corey dove on his family to protect them. In a post from one of his daughters, Allison, that was no longer public Sunday, she remembered him as the best dad a girl could ever have. He loved his family. He truly loved us enough to take a bullet for us, says his daughter, Allison Compatore. Now, the media won't tell you that he died a real-life superhero, she continued. They're not going to tell you how quickly he threw my mom and I to the ground. They're not going to tell you that he shielded my body from the bullet that came at us. Compatore was an engineer and a volunteer firefighter. He attended church every Sunday and by many accounts would help out anybody in a heartbeat. And the FBI has taken on the role of lead investigator into the shooting. Authorities said Sunday they had no known motive. Crooks, the shooter, had no criminal record or documented history of mental illness, but authorities said they did find bomb-making materials in his vehicle. I mean, that sounds so cliche, but there it is. And that they were focused on retrieving data from his phone records. Now, it's interesting to me that I have heard some criticism of the FBI taking the lead role in the investigation. Why? Because isn't it the FBI, the 51 operatives that came out against Trump? Wasn't it the FBI that said the Hunter's computer was Russian disinformation? Wasn't it the FBI that said that Trump was a Russian operative? Wasn't it the FBI that did all these things to try to pivot attention to Trump as being a subversive of some kind in our nation? And yeah, Unleashed Jeremy Hansen says he gave Crooks, the shooter, gave $15 to go blue. He has a mental illness, in my opinion, he said. Well, yeah, there you go. That's a progressive leftist organization. Charlotte, Nancy, you all know her as Nancy Planeta. He got 3 shots off from what we were told by people in the know. The other shots were in response. One shot was with a silencer used by the CAT team on site, the SS snipers. And now my understanding is that with something I have read, and I've read different accounts of this, Nancy or Jeremy or Travis, whoever's available, keep posted here. Come on, call in if you'd like to. Nancy, I'd love to have you call in because I know, not that Travis isn't, he's just put his baby to bed. But Nancy, you've got some inside scoop on a lot of this kind of stuff in general. And so I'm going to paste the link right here in the chat room, and you can grab that. Oh, you're over in the Facebook, Nancy, so you're not going to be able to see everybody else's posts. You have to come into YouTube to see all the conversation going on. But Nancy, if you wanted to call in, that would be phenomenal at any point. So I'm going to continue going on with the information I have here, which I know is superficial compared to some of the things that Nancy and Travis know and know about things. So that was Corey Compatore, by the way. I wanted to do a little tiny homage to him. He's the one who died protecting his wife and daughter. As soon as he heard shots, now it only lasted a few seconds, but as soon as he heard the shots, he threw his wife and daughter to the ground or the floor and lay on top of them to cover them up. And it was effective because guess what? He was killed in the process of doing that. So here's the big question. The former Secret Service agent, has warned that the agency is stretched way too thin with new responsibilities, lack of manpower, and that the Trump rally assassination attempt comes as the agency handles expanded duties without expanded roster, and this retired agent warns everybody of this. And days after this assassin was I'm reading this. Days after a would-be assassin killed a bystander. Yeah, that's his Compatore we were just talking about. And he wounded 2 others while he was trying to kill former President Donald Trump. Questions remain about how an armed man like Compatore, I'm sorry, not Compatore, like Crooks, the shooter, was able to climb onto the rooftop less than 150 yards from a major political candidate with a rifle and a clear line of sight to the President of the United States, former president, hopefully soon to be next President of the United States again. Now, before I get into this, though, I want to look at what a veteran sniper said about this with the line of sight and this guy being up there. I saw this first as a video, and I think most of this is a text of his video. He was walking down a street, and he was talking about this. Nancy, I see you there. Hang on. I'll bring you in just a second here. This veteran sniper was from a team with the longest confirmed kill. Says the roof used by the would-be assassin Thomas Crook was the most fucking obvious risk. Now, he's a veteran of the sniper team with the world's longest confirmed kill, long distance. He refuses to believe untrained gunman Thomas Matthew Crooks was so easily able to shoot former President Donald Trump, saying that even a 7th grader would know the rooftop he climbed onto was the most fucking obvious place for the Secret Service to check. And he said, I'm very familiar with the layout of these types of things and what the job should be. retired sniper Dallas Alexander said in an Instagram post on Sunday of the previous day's attempted assassination at Trump's rally. And yesterday, he goes on, what happened, I have no doubts in my mind that the shooter had help from somewhere within an agency, an organization, or the government, Alexander stated firmly. The second I saw that aerial photo of what they say happened, it immediately made sense to me, he said, of the rooftop crooks climbed onto within direct sight of where Trump was speaking, roughly 400 feet away. Folks, that's just a little bit over a football field in length. So Alexander, a 14-year veteran of the Canadian unit with the world's longest confirmed kill, there it is again, they've repeated that 3 times, said it would be one of the most obvious points to check for specialists sweeping the area long before Trump arrived. You don't even need to be a sniper. It's the most fucking obvious thing, he goes on. The most obvious place in the whole world, he said. You could be like a 7th grader. And what do we have to do for security? Well, let's look at these rooftops that are almost within zeroing range of a rifle, he said incredulously. And Alexander continued, something happened. I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. It's just too obvious that this guy had help getting there. Whether someone turned a blind eye or it was strategically planned, events like that, security like that, it's not a small thing. And that is the most obvious place to be. Matthew Murphy, a retired Green Beret and a sniper trained to the most elite level, also dismissed the suggestion that some 20-year-old kid that looks like he played Dungeons and Dragons in his mom's basement was able to put Trump in his sights. You're going to tell me that a kid went through all those levels of security, somehow got into the closest building to the president and accessed the rooftop, then had time to unpack his rifle, lay down, and then take 5 to 8 well-aimed shots at the president before he was decisively engaged? He said there's obviously no way possible. That kid was able to get up there and take those shots at the president without a lot of internal help. Now, the Secret Services blamed local cops, insisting that the rooftop was outside the perimeter the federal agency was tasked with protecting. Still, Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, who oversees the Secret Service, conceded on Good Morning America this morning that a direct line of sight like that to the former president should never have been possible. So that's why President Biden directed an independent review of the incident, he said. I'm going to bring Nancy Planeta in here. Nancy, how you doing?
I'm good, Scotty. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Even more fantasticer now that you're here. It's good to see. I'm going to take away my proscenium arch here, I like to call it. It covers up too much stuff. There we go. All right.
It's just my picture.
It's your picture. And I just want to say hey to Mike Muka, who is here in the chat room tonight as well. Good to see you. And Sarah Youssef is here, and Unleash Jeremy Hansen, and others. So, Charlotte, I am sure you have had some conversations about this stuff with your husband. You can say whatever you want to about him and his know-how on this stuff. What's your take on all of this? I don't like to get overly conspiratorial. I like to keep my wits about me, keep my head, keep my common sense. And I don't like to be one of the first ones to go, oh, obviously an inside job. I don't think it was an inside job. I don't like that term, but I think that there was more to this. It's like, you look at Oswald and the Kennedy shooting. Inside job? Did he do it by himself? So, etc.
I was just going to say, basically after, pretty much, and we were watching it live, by the way, when it happened. And you have to imagine my husband was federal law enforcement, and he works as a protection specialist now, as well as a firearms instructor. And so he's watching it, having an absolute heart attack. with pretty much everything that's occurring.
Right.
And he's turning, each time they replayed it, he got redder because he's just like, that should not be happening. I mean, what are they doing?
Imagine.
Are you kidding me right now? And, it was interesting because initially, when you watched it live, you couldn't hear the shots. It did sound like fireworks coming over TV, but as you've seen replays of it and people who are in closer proximity, you can definitively hear rifle fire.
I didn't see it. I heard about it, and I was out, and I heard about it at a store, and I was home. Within 25 minutes, we were home watching it. I'm going to bring Jeremy Hansen in here too, by the way. Jeremy, how you doing? Welcome.
Good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a travesty, isn't it?
It is. Well, let's Nancy, you got some more going on here with what you're going to say.
You have to understand what the business that we both work in. I mean, we both have a lot of contacts in government.
Right.
Still currently, one of them was actually there and has been in contact, and that's how we know exactly how the rounds went off. But we also know that the position where the sniper was at, that was actually supposedly that was set up. That was a point for the Secret Service. That was supposed to be manned. So we're not sure. We've heard wind that because of the movements of the Secret Service detail to Jill Biden, because basically what had occurred was earlier in the week, Jill Biden had decided, Jill, not Joe, Jill, had decided to go to Pennsylvania on a whim, and most of Trump's normal detail got reassigned. So he was with in a strange detail for most of it. I mean, there's only one guy on the Kern, his head of detail, who was actually somebody that was always with him. But the rest of the detail were mix and match.
Is that where the three very short women came in? Not as regular detail.
So here, you got to imagine how this went down as we're watching this. Here's Raphael watching, and here's me watching, and I'm a short woman. And I've been trained by him, and plus my father. I've been raised with firearms. I'm very used to what he does for his living. I would never do it, but it's another story. But again, I'm watching it, and I'm horrified by what I'm seeing. I'm horrified for the little blonde female in the circle of trust, as I was calling it.
Right.
And I'm like, oh my God, she's under his armpit. Her head is literally in prime position to get blown the hell off, because that is a kill shot. That when his arm went up, I literally kind of gasped and went, what are they doing? And I even looked at Raphael and I said, even Ronald Reagan, when he got shot, you could see the president's freaking underwear as they were dragging him.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, let me ask both of you. When I heard Trump say in the many reviews of this that I've watched, you heard him say, as they're huddled around him, they start to move him off stage, and he says, wait, and they stop. He says, wait, stop, because he wanted to do the fist up in the air. And so is that normal for a Secret Service detail to be hauling this guy off stage because he's in danger? And he says, stop. I want to address the audience, is actually what he was trying to do. And they let him.
They should have dragged him off the stage. Period.
Right. It should never have had, like I said, Ronald Reagan, literally you could see the man's underwear as they were dragging him, because he's not supposed to stand. He's a tall man, number one. He makes a very, very big target.
6'4", I think.
Most of his male Secret Service agents are either equal to him in height or taller than him. And that's for a reason. And that poor girl, the one little Secret Service agent, she was vastly shorter. And she was like right in front of him, right in that armpit zone, which, me as a medic, I'm going, oh. But it got worse than that.
Waiting to happen.
It took them 3-4 minutes to get him off that stage. He should have been off that stage in 30 seconds flat. I mean, the Secret Service, they don't stop to pick up shoes. They can't.
Secret Service, the guy that was actually killed the perpetrator, he released a statement saying that he had the perpetrator in his sights for 3 minutes and was not given clearance to shoot.
Oh,
Now that's a big deal.
now
And
wouldn't you? Yeah, no, sorry to interrupt you, Jerry, but somebody tell me, because I don't know these things on the inside track. Don't you, if you are the Secret Service protecting a former president or a president, anybody that your job is with the government to protect this guy, and you see somebody with a gun in the line of sight, do you have to wait for an order to take him out? Or do you
Yes.
say, here's a guy with a gun, I'm taking him? You got to
They
wait for
changed
somebody
it.
to say, stand down or go take him? Or
They
what if he
changed the
shoots
rule,
in that point?
but they changed the rule. You have to go back again. You got to do a little bit of footwork, do a little bit of research where they had changed some of the standards leading into this, and
there's
that's
rules of
bothersome.
engagement, and whoever was in charge was on site, and they were repeating back to the station snipers whether or not they could take a shot. Now they found a ladder way earlier. There was reports to local police about the guy being up there, and then for 3 minutes they had him in the sights. They could have taken him at any time, and
Somebody went up the ladder, I had heard. I didn't know it was the local police or a civilian, and said the kid turned his rifle on them and he got back down, dropped
Yes,
back down
that was.
off of there.
It was a local police officer who climbed the ladder. He was the one that put the
Okay.
ladder against the wall and climbed it. But that's part of my reason why the kid's shot was off, because the kid turned with the weapon on the local officer. And by the way, he scaled that building with that rifle in the open.
Yeah.
You can see it. There's film. You can
Well, that's
watch.
what the people
the
were
film.
all saying that saw him.
Yeah. He had that rifle strapped to him. And you're talking an area of Pennsylvania where those kids really can shoot. They're all raised with rifles out there.
No, you're out in the country. Yeah.
So I said,
well, that
I
that
don't
kid
think
actually
he.
tried out for
I don't
the
think it was
shooting
his
team.
purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
right.
had
Well,
his freshman year. He tried.
If you,
He didn't make it.
if you,
That's what I had read.
well,
Oh, by the way,
exactly.
on the point that JP
But
is
you-
asking, has the point been verified that they were told to hold? I don't know if it was verified. I've seen it in 3 different articles though today.
It's.
That
I
same
don't think
point
it's been
being made.
officially verified. I know she did a press conference earlier today, stating that obviously things had been mishandled, but she was not going to step down. I mean, she was a DEI hire. The woman was security for
Right.
PepsiCo. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, she worked for the
Right.
Secret Service before that, but come on, she did not have what it takes to run the Secret Service, especially
You know,
the
that highly
presidential arm.
volatile position at Pepsi. So
I mean,
You know, the funny part about that is if you talk to anybody, any one of these guys that run the security stuff, you know, perimeter is everything. And
Yep.
to have a guy 164 yards away with a clean line of sight from an elevated position is a nightmare. Like that should have been top ABC. Now there was buildings behind him, but they were all covered. But those types of mistakes don't happen. Those types of mistakes somebody lets happen.
see, this is, I think, why the conspiracy raises. It's not that everything was procedurally fine and perfect, and but what if it was? It wasn't that. It's that how do you have a building like that? And Nancy, I'll ask you, did Rafe talk about this with you at all? How do you have a building that is in the only building in line of sight that is not checked?
No, it doesn't have. And he said it's. Listen, there's a blogger out there by the name of Truth Hammer, and he put it perfectly. It's Occam's razor, fully Occam's razor. There's no way this could have happened without massive security failures. Massive security failures at that level do not happen unless people on the inside are involved. It's that simple. It's not hard to figure out. Something happened somewhere, whether it was intentional, whether it was unintentional. That's what needs to be determined. But something happened. I do understand that the snipers that were closest, the ones we keep seeing in the video, the reason they got up and backed up a little bit was because their scopes are for distance. And he was so close, they were having a hard time reassessing the scope to zoom in on him.
Wow.
And that actually made sense because I was like, yeah, they're looking at further out.
Wow.
And that's why you saw him get up, adjust, get down, and his hand goes to the end of the scope. So it's, I mean, But Ralphie, like I said, he's watching the whole thing, literally horrified, embarrassed, horrified. I mean, he said,
Sure.
he knows guys, long-term Secret Service, and he's like, they're remarkable people. They've given their life to this. Their whole life is this kind of security, this type of stress, this type of environment, and to see them all completely like annihilated because of what happened, which should never have happened.
Right.
He's like, it's not even going to be used as a training video. He goes, it'll be used as an absolute humiliation. He said, because that you can't even, how do you even use that for, there's so many mistakes that are so, he goes,
That's it.
It didn't even, he goes, it didn't help that they zoomed in on some of the biggest ones, like, when they went to get him into the truck and you had the agent who couldn't holster her weapon.
Right.
Could not
She
find her
tried
holster.
several
I was
times.
like, yeah.
I thought it was very interesting that, excuse me, and I mentioned this yesterday when we were talking about it on the Sunday show, is that when they were putting him into the vehicle, now, first of all, you got Trump, who's 6'4". They're putting him in the vehicle. Yep. He steps up onto the SUV and he stands up again. His head is up at least a head and part of his shoulders above the top of that vehicle. And he puts his fist in the air again. And they had to pull him down and put him in. It would seem to me, now, we're talking about a lot of human error here, a lot of flub ups, a lot of screw ups, which, you know what? This is the wrong place to discover you're not doing things right, is during a live event like that. But here he is. Here's the guy who just got shot. And he's standing instead of, what did they do to Reagan? Reagan said that he was in a great deal of pain, but he thought he had broken a rib because they threw him head first into the limousine and he hit the hump in the middle of the limousine on the floor with his ribs. And they just chucked him in there. They didn't care. They got him in there and out of there. He was gone within not even 30 seconds of that shooting.
That's what I'm saying. If you look at the length of time that passed between him getting nicked, and this is something I will stand firm on, and Rafi and I both agreed on this, watching Trump's face, because we actually zoomed in when we were watching the video, watching his expressions. And I said, no, that man was not expecting that. I said, it looks like he almost thought like he got stung by a bee or something. I said, but when he came up, you could see he was shaking.
Yes.
I said, look, stop on his face. You can see that you can't, there's no way you can portray that as an actor as well as that came off. I said, he was genuinely shaken. I said, and then you could see slowly his face changes. Then he gets angry. I'm like, yep, there's no faking that either. He was pissed.
Right.
So I talked to my son.
It looked like a Luke and Leia protecting a wounded Wookiee.
My son was the head of security details for JSOC in the Air Force for terrorist extraction. And he said that if he would have been the point man there, that every single person there would have been fired, that there would have been an inquiry by that person in front of Congress this week.
Yeah.
Because they had everything to plan for, and he said that they had better security details when they would fly into places and pull terrorists out than they had for President Trump that day.
Yes.
Well, it was interesting too, though, because again, if you look back at some of the information that's come out, like the fact that they were only given 1 day, because again, they switched out his detail. Yep. They were given 1 day to prepare. They only had 2 sniper teams, which is unheard of.
Yes.
I mean, literally, they were shorthanded. They'd never done this detail before except for Kern. Kern was the only consistent. So it's like, you sit there and you scratch your head and you say, okay, but even if that's the case, these are our best. The Secret Service are the best of the best.
Yes.
And where they're supposed to be. And they're not supposed to be DEI hirings. It's not supposed to be, oh, we feel bad, let's keep the bar somewhere. No, these are people's lives we're talking about.
Yep. I'd like to ask you guys something. How dumb do you think they think we are?
Huh?
How dumb do you think the powers that be think that we are? Like, the first thing on TikTok, there was a million, these people that call conservatives conspiracy theorists. There were a million of these left-wing assholes out there saying, oh, it was just set up and it was put on and it wasn't real. And, you know, does anybody besides me, and I assume Scotty, think that we're constantly getting played and they're spitting right in our face every day? And, you know, even to the point that we're having a conversation right now, whether the greatest security team in the world messed up by having a elevated point 164 yards away from the president that wasn't covered, and all the scripts, and we're meant to believe that, oh, it was just, you know, people made some mistakes. It's like, fuck you. I'm so sick of hearing it. Aren't you guys?
I am.
It's well, and you know what? You have to, even if you look at the kid, the shooter, Crooks, if you look at his background, his father was a behavioral psychiatrist who was an author. His mother, a teacher. Both, I mean, complete liberal doghounds. I mean, he somehow registered Republican. I'm like, plant. I kept saying it, plant.
Yeah, he's a registered left-wing libertarian, and she's a registered Democrat. They're both psychoanalysts.
Exactly.
I had somebody on my, and you know who this person is, Nancy, just through the circles that you and I are in. And there was a guy that made a comment on my post about this, how, well, obviously, and this guy is liberal as they come. And he said, well, obviously, you know, they found out he is a registered Republican, the shooter. And he's trying to make a point that the only people who shoot people are registered Republicans. And everybody came in and corrected him and said he was registered Republican, but he was not a Republican. And he kept arguing that point. And I said, even today, he said something. And I said, I think you're just trying to argue the point so you can make some kind of point about him being a Republican. You know, that's, come on, you've got to. And people have, this is a totally different topic, but what I've grown tired of is everybody who will close their eyes and plug their ears when it comes to anything that is outside the wheelhouse of their particular partisan leaning, their party leaning. They've got to stay within their party. They've got to stay within the party dialogue, stay within the party line. And this is what's become very tiring for me in all of this stuff leading up to this shooting.
It's funny because I just earlier tonight I posted something that Greg Gutfeld had said on Fox, and I don't follow Fox, but I did watch this clip, and it was well said of him about the rhetoric. And I posted it with my own monologue and basically said, you know, basically the MAGA movement has been painted like a grotesque dolly design. I mean, we come from all different walks of life. We're all different creeds. We're all different creations. We're all different cultures. It's a huge mishmash of people. I know this because I've been to multiple Trump rallies. I worked for his campaign. I mean, I know this. So I'm like, you know, yet we got painted with these broad strokes to look a certain way. And if anything was said to counter that, both the media and social media destroyed us because they were bought out by liberal dollars. And the thing is that what's happened, it's really strange and kind of comical because they became a giant echo chamber because they shut our voices down in a lot of ways. So the only voices that can be heard are theirs. And what were theirs saying? Hate, rhetoric, violence. They did this to themselves. 100%. And it's almost a good thing we got shut down on social media in many ways because they're the only ones spewing that crap because they're the only ones allowed to.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm sick of it to the point I don't give two shits if people like it or they don't like it. I don't want any friends that are liberals. I don't want any fucking cantankerous son of a bitch that says that a man can have a baby. I don't want that type of insane bullshit in my life. And I think that I speak for most Americans that are just fucking sick of it. And for them to keep pushing on it and pushing on it and pushing on it, eventually things are going to break. And I'm to the point where this is so fucking obvious to me that they tried to assassinate the person because they know they can't beat him at the ballot box. They know that. And everybody else is kind of like, well, did it happen? At some point, you have to pull a rational conclusion to what's going on around you. And for some reason, Americans can't debate in their own head. They can't actually have a feeling that's their own, and they can't critically think anymore. And
sorry
until
about that, everybody. I
that's-
disconnected myself from the broadcast somehow. I hit a wrong button and I couldn't figure it out, so I had to leave and come back in.
They can't critically think, and here's the worst part: they can't see patterns.
Right.
They cannot see patterns, and it's like, I don't know how this has happened that y'all can't put A and A together because they match. But
Exactly.
you're not seeing the picture. You're seeing whatever the news is painting for you. Turn that crap off. Start doing go take a walk in your own neighborhood and see what's going on.
I had to have a talk with my 7-year-old daughter because he saw a YouTube ad where a transgender dude was having a baby, and she was telling me that a boy could have a baby. And I was thinking to myself, what kind of fucking asshole put that on there to try to brainwash my kid that I have to sit there and have a conversation with? I am so fed up with it. I guess I'm a little bit more radical than everybody else, but it's been years of this bullshit. And, you know, Scotty, me and you sat there on the radio for how many years getting stolen from us, and those assholes taking us off the radio because we were stating opinions that actually ended up being right. And, you know, we were called, crazy conspiracists. And I posted on there, I hate being the crazy conspiracist that's always right. And God damn it, that's the way I feel.
Yeah.
Like I said, you know what? Those of us who have been at this for 30 years are now straightening our tinfoil hats and shining them up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because guess what? We're back.
I want to go.
This never went anywhere.
In a big way.
I mean, it's funny because Scotty will remember, I got myself in trouble several times on my radio.
I do.
Because again, I was following the Q drops. I was reading the Q drops. And I kept saying to my husband, and my husband gets so mad at me, you know, it's a psyop. I'm like, of course it's a psyop. What else would it be? Of course it's a psyop. The question is who's playing it?
You know,
and I have to tell you guys, literally, but things have played out. The shot heard around the world. The 6 o'clock is dangerous. These things were all posted in drops and in an order that brings up what we call a delta, which means an anniversary date. So it's one of those things where you're like, okay, I don't know who did it. I don't know who. I think I told you, Scotty, long ago. I think it's an algorithm, but I don't know who or what it is. But I know it's accurate, and it's accurate to the point where it's kind of like you're scratching your head. Some of it's misinformation. All good psyops have misinformation. That's how you play the game. You can't show the people your hand, but you also give them information to give to the public. And I've always said, if it was a psyop by the deep state, it really backfired in their face because it attracted a bunch of autists who did a lot of research, found the information, and started memeing it, which is the best way to get to the simple population of this country, because they'd rather look at a picture and giggle, and then they comprehend what they're seeing, and they're like, oh, yeah, that makes sense, rather than read a monologue.
It's funny. The only interaction I've ever had with the FBI was one came to my studio when I was doing Unleash Jeremy Hansen, and they handed me a paper, and it said that I was on Antifa's top 100 kill list. And I shit you not, that night I was listening to these leftists talk about how nice Antifa was and nonviolent and all this bullshit. And I see that playing over and over and over again. Whether it's the COVID-19, whether it's that's happening right now, whether it's restricting voting rights. I mean, I've been watching this happen. And guess what? Nothing's going to change until people get pissed off and start punching other people in the nose.
Well, I look at it this way, and I've said it for years, and Scotty's heard me say it. My view on it is this: it's not going to be the conservative middle class that rises up. It's not going to be the upper classes that rise up. It's going to be the poor that rise up in the end, because we're running, guys, our financial status is really in the crapper. And we are going to have a meltdown, whether we like it or not. It's coming. They're going to try to push QFS. That's coming. And basically the poor, the people who are dependent on food stamps, welfare, housing, they're the most dangerous parts of our population, and they're going to be the ones the most affected and the first affected.
It's
They're going to be the
going.
one. I'm telling you, I keep saying it. It's going to be them.
Yes, it's going to be like the old peasants' revolt in medieval times, and where the poorest of people rise up. So I'm with you on that, Nancy.
I can see that, but I can
Well,
also
like I
see
said-
the communists coming in and making a Maoist movement, which is just as dangerous
Oh,
with young
they're
boys.
Already going on.
They're already here. They've been here. And I will say that again too. History repeats itself. McCarthy was not wrong. He may have gone
Right.
about it a little bit strangely, but he was not wrong. He knew they were in the education system. He knew they were infiltrating government. He knew back then. They knew.
Yes.
So in Hollywood, he had his fingers all over Hollywood. Why? Because there was a huge communist influence there, and there still is.
Still is.
I mean, so we can hide it up or rewrap it however we want. And the truth is never easy to swallow, but you got to go start looking at things. What do these people support? What do they do with their private time? Who do they donate to? Look at it. Because
Right.
if it doesn't reflect your morals, your feelings, and trust me, guys, I mean, I'm a pagan, and I will tell you, I can't deal with what I'm seeing in society right now because it goes against nature in a complete thumb in your face way. I mean, it's absolute lunacy. The morals are in the crapper. Everything is just shot. Family is shot. These things that we need to have a cohesive society, they've been taken from us piece by piece, and we've allowed it. I mean, it
that's
makes
the
me
problem. I mean, that's literally the problem. You know, you finally, and they're doing it in the wrong way, but you finally see people standing up to corrupt cops, but they're doing it to the good ones as well. So it's like this thing that beware of what you wish for because it's going to affect everything.
That's it. It's but they've inflamed the anger, and people aren't taught to control their emotions anymore. That is no longer taught. They're taught to express their emotions. Express your emotions, you freaking idiot.
Scream
No.
a little bit. Yes.
You have to, yes, you can express your thoughts, but you keep those emotions in check. Especially
I'll
if
tell you what's wrong with the world, and you know this might sound sexist, but I don't really think it is if you really think about it. There was a time when guys got around and they would drink some brandy and smoke cigars and talk about how to make the world better. And instead of that, we got young girls shaking their asses with as little clothes on as they can, and that's what everybody talks about instead of how to actually fix things.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
And Scotty will tell you again, I'm not a major proponent of the feminist movement. I do 1,000% believe that women have a place and women have strength. And we 100% can contribute to society in many, many ways, but not always in the ways that men do, and not on an equal level that men do in those ways. It annoys me that when you go into the military, they lower the bar for women. Why? That's not equality. You don't lower a bar. Equality means equal bar.
Well, and we saw the what happens when you do that literally in that video when that really short woman that couldn't protect the president's upper extremities that were all kill shot. Any place from where her head was above was a kill shot. And she couldn't holster her weapon.
Was in his armpit. I was like, that's prime position right there, man. Right through the armpit. That's a kill shot. Yep. It's I was just not. And you're right. And it's funny because my son is a fire medic now, and I was an EMT years ago, and so I see him doing his job, and he's with the fire department where I was not. I was with a private company, and I say to him, "How are the girls? Do you have girls in your house?" And he says, "Well, no, not in my house, but there are women in the different firehouses." I said, "How does that work?" I said, "Because I've known many firemen in my day." I said, "I have never understood how a female could lug a 220 or 30-pound man down multiple flights of stairs if necessary to save his life. I've never understood how that works." And he says, "Well, He goes, don't get me wrong, Mom. There are women that are capable of doing that. He was like, some of these women are bigger than I am. He said, but he goes, on the other side of that, he goes, they can do the job, maybe not that part of it. He goes, they can haul like the hoses and stuff. They have to be able to do that. He said, but they do contribute in ways where the men can't necessarily react the same. He said, so it balances out in the end. And that actually satisfied me for an answer, because I have issues. If a woman cannot do the job as it needs to be done, you can't lower the bar.
Right.
Especially not in fields like where you're
I
saving
said
lives.
the same thing to Rainey when we were watching all the video of it on Saturday evening. I said to her, I said, this is all, I said, look at this. Just look at that picture with those three, especially after they had already put them in the car and they were starting to drive off. And the three women were standing in front. They all had white shirts and open suit coats, and they're all standing. They're all looking around. I did not get the feel that they were being sharp and looking for it. They looked very much like they didn't know what the hell they were doing. And I said to Rainey at the time, I said, this to me is your DEI hires at work. So
yeah. Well, and I have to, again, I know some people have taken issue with it, and I've been pretty vocal about it on my Facebook page. And that is, of course, the one agent who couldn't holster her weapon, who hid behind the president, and who literally ran around the truck like a chicken with her head cut off. Mm-hmm. And I was looking at Rafa. I said, not for anything, but that's a wannabe. I mean, she's not composed at all. I said, at least the other two are trying to be composed. I said, the little blonde, I give big kudos to, because that woman really did. She stuck her head right in his armpit, and I was just like holding my breath. I said, the other girl, the taller girl with the ponytail, I said, it looked like she was trying to get instructions. Like she kept stepping forward, like she was trying to hear somebody, and then stepping back, and then stepping forward. I said, but that other girl, she's just all over the place. Like, I'm like, what is she doing? She doesn't know what how does she not know what she's supposed to be doing right now?
Some of that, I will say this, some of that is not necessarily her fault. I think some of that is the fault of having a day to prepare, being transferred from somewhere else, the fault of the kind of hire that she is. And this is the problem when this kind of stuff happens. You're not looking at somebody who is necessarily, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not a deliberate not knowing what to do or just being a screw off. It's that they literally couldn't do the job.
How about getting rid of gender studies and gender inclusion bullshit and teaching them how to do their goddamn job?
Thank you.
Well, there it is.
Thank you. She was not trained correctly. Those Secret Service, they are trained to the point where it's a muscle reaction, like shooting for a police officer. It should be it's a muscle memory thing. She had zero muscle memory. I mean, I feel bad for her because the memes are like literally off the chain with her. But it's kind of like, you kind of put yourself out there by putting yourself out as qualified to do this detail when you weren't.
Yes.
Clearly.
Yes, clearly. I have a picture of the site map of the shooting, but for some reason, my graphics are just not loading up tonight. There's something with my broadcast software that is not allowing that. So we're kind of past that point anyway of talking about that particular thing, about referring to that map, but I was going to show you all what that looked like, but now I can't. But let's hit a couple of other points while I've still got you both on here. There's the fact that all of this is now starting to shine light on rally security and the kind of Secret Service that Trump has been given. Mayorkas saying they're spread thin, but not taking responsibility for that. Also, the idea that, the legislation that was up, and I named the names yesterday who were backing this proposed legislation in the House, to anybody, any former president or anybody who would normally get Social Security, I was going to say, Secret Service protection, will be disallowed from getting that if they have a felony conviction.
Well,
and this was before any of this happened this weekend.
exactly.
This came out a couple of months ago. They were trying to say, well, because he's going to be convicted in this trial, then he won't be eligible to get his Secret Service protection anymore.
Well, and I think here's the thing: you're seeing a lot of bullets being. Okay.
Yeah.
When SCOTUS did their ruling on J6 and on several other things, actually, it really destroyed everything that they had tried to do. I mean, obviously today, Judge Cannon threw out the classified docs
they should
case.
be impeached. Thank God we have Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, who is introducing legislation to impeachment papers for at least Alito and Thomas on the Supreme Court.
Because she's just such a crowd
idiot
drawer that she gets like 10 people and she screams at them like an idiot.
I know.
But I mean, on to more serious things. We have, I mean, the SCOTUS ruling, you had Cannon dismiss that case in full today. So there goes that hope down the drain. That was their treason charge.
Yep.
And then you have the judge in New York on the felony case who's now withholding his sentencing, most likely because that whole trial was based off stuff that is now inadmissible.
Yep.
Because of the SCOTUS ruling.
And everybody knows he was an activist judge with an activist prosecutor, and all the rulings that were coming off the bench were so out of the ordinary. And
trust me, now that there's been an attempted assassination, yeah. And I said to somebody that he knows if he comes down with a prison sentence or anything of that like and doesn't do the right thing, he's going to fry.
Yes.
Even if Trump doesn't get into office, eventually the pendulum's going to go back the other way, and people are going to have to answer for what they did.
Yes.
It's going to happen because that's how it works.
Yes. I want people to start talking about, the document case where they raided Mar-a-Lago, and now they're proven that, Trump never took them with him. That was literally Biden's, whatever you call it, that department sent him those records, and they put him down there because they didn't know what to do with them. And then they got those records and then charged him for taking them, and he never took them.
That was dismissed today by Cannon. That was the case that got dismissed.
Yes. And Jack Smith was trying to appeal to Cannon just over the last couple of weeks to please disregard the SCOTUS ruling on immunity.
I know.
I read that and I was like, dude, are you a jackass or just stupid? Because disregard the Supreme Court ruling because we have to have this case go through. And she's like, no, sorry.
Better yet, because we want to impeach part of the Supreme Court so we can go even Stevens on the numbers here.
That's
and get things swinging our way. But, and I guess I could say their articles of impeachment are really interesting because they're making accusations that Sotomayor and the liberal judges could stand just as easily accused.
Sure they could.
And it's like, guys, when you decided that whoever the seated president is will make that choice and that they have to be approved by Congress, and you kind of hoped and prayed that we would have a workable Congress.
Yep.
Well, yeah.
Well, for months, the word the judiciary has to be destroyed, and I'm watching that happen in front of my face.
And folks, make no doubt about it, everybody. One of the reasons they want Biden to win, or they want to take him out because they don't think he can win and run somebody that they think can, is they know that there is going to be they want Biden to be able to replace some Supreme Court justices, or somebody on the left to replace those justices. And
the thing is, they can't forcibly remove Biden.
No, they
from
can't
the ticket
unless they impeach them. Right.
That's the thing.
This
He
is why
has to
that's
voluntarily
beginning.
step aside or be impeached. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So they are stuck. And
Yeah, it's like,
I said to somebody,
I'm sorry, a foundation for impeaching a Supreme Court judge or president isn't because you don't like their ruling. And so they're trying to trump up all this stuff. Well, he took, gifts and things like that.
Well, the thing with Biden is he damn well knows that he has no choice but to run and fight the other Democrats because he's their useful idiot. And the minute that somebody else gets in power, then he's going to be their target. He's going to be the fall guy for everything.
Yes, that's exactly what will happen. So I can't even believe that they want to propose that Kamala Harris should take over, which is exactly what would happen if Biden got reelected anyway. So it wouldn't be long before he'd be out of office. That's why everybody's saying, well, Kamala Harris on the left there, well, she's a very formidable person. She's perfect for the job. It's like, I'm sorry, in whose book is she perfect for the job? And that's one thing I have noticed about all this caterwauling about Biden lately, but from the left, is that they are seeing him as somebody who is now a liability that can no longer beat Trump, and they want to take him out because of it. And his poll numbers kind of did a little thing after the NATO here and all of that, the NATO conference and all of that, and his speaking, his big boy preference. Who the hell called it that? His big boy presser.
That was his wife.
His wife?
That was Jill Biden that did that.
Oh, is my big boy ready to do his presser now?
Oh, no. He did his... No, dude, he did his debate. And after the debate, she went on live TV and was telling him he did such a good job. And he answered all the questions. And I was
like... You answered all the questions.
Well,
yeah. It's like, well, that's a given, isn't it? You're supposed to. But here's what I see. They're in a position where if they take Biden out forcibly, they'd have to do it 25th Amendment. And they'd have to take him out that way, as Mike Mooka just said, 25th Amendment. If they take him out, they have to do that. Then they're left with Kamala Harris. And so now you see they're very mildly starting to build up how good a person and President Kamala Harris would make. If they let Biden run, and if he wins, they'll retire him and she'll take over. They'll convince him he has to retire, step down. But I think he's too prideful anyway. I think he thinks he can do it. But then if they run him, he will most probably lose. And they're starting to see that. And let me ask you this question. It's a speculative question. So now that this has happened with Trump being shot, an attempted assassination, what do you think that does for his electability?
I think he won. I think that was the coup de grace.
That was it.
I don't think it's even a question anymore. I think there are always going to be that 10 to 15% of the population that's going to stick to the Democrat candidate no matter who it is. And I think what annoys me with that is that they elected Biden in 2020 knowing that he was not all cognitively there. We all knew that. I mean, they ignored it, but it was known. And they will try to elect him again in 2024, knowing full well that he's not the person with his finger on the nuclear button. In fact, we don't know who has their finger on the nuclear button because cognitively, he could not have his on the nuclear button.
Right.
And that to me that's almost akin to treason.
It is.
Because you are taking this nation.
What else is treason? What else is treason? When you have had the people of the United States elect an individual to office, the highest office of the land, and then fraudulently, he's not doing the leading. He's not the one making the decisions. He's got that group of 4 or 5 around him that are making the decisions, calling the shots. That to me is fraudulent, and that is also treasonous by definition.
And again, even I'll go back to the election in 2020. If you add up the numbers that they gave us, the numbers of votes Trump got, the numbers of votes Biden got, if you add those numbers together, it's statistically impossible. And that's why I say, when they say there was no voter fraud, just add the numbers they gave us together and then look at the population, look at the age of the population, then look at the percentage of the population that actually voted, and tell me how the hell you ended up with more than half the population participating in the vote.
Yes.
It can't, it's statistically impossible.
Yes.
So it's like, granted they don't want to talk about it. It's not to be spoken of, but y'all, mathematically, it does not make sense in any way, shape, or form.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
I'll tell you the way America feels. I was walking through Walmart today. Now, keep in mind, I'm dirty. I got my pressure washing. I got just crap from head to toe.
Sure.
I walk into Walmart, and this guy's walking out, and it says Biden no matter what shirt. And I didn't move. I'm a Midwestern guy. I'll usually get out of the way, be very kind. I just kept walking, and we tapped shoulders, and that sumbitch almost hit the ground. But I'm telling you, that's the way that all of America feels. I am just done, tired of it. And everybody knows that the election was stolen from us. And if you even mention it, you're going to get shut down. So it is what it is. But like Wisconsin, I watched the Supreme Court of Wisconsin take 28,000 votes that were illegal, even according to them. But they said, we must go with the spirit of the people and then make those 28,000 votes count. And then he lost the state. So, people can say
the misnomer. The misnomer, the misconception, the misinterpretation. I saw somebody say last week about the recent SCOTUS ruling that the Supreme Court of the United States is supposed to be the Supreme Court of the people, and they have to rule the way the people think. And I said, no, they do not have to rule the way the people think. That is not why they are there. The Supreme Court is there to uphold the Constitution, not to rule vox populi, the voice of the people. No.
That's exactly why we don't have a democracy.
Yes.
They're the voice of the founding fathers. And it's funny because I got into it with somebody today about the Second Amendment, because they were saying, if only the outcry was this great, would a third grade classroom get shot up? And I was like, apples to oranges, number one.
Yep.
Number two, and I was like, we have a protected right under the Constitution to keep and bear arms. And she said, no, that is not what it says. I'm like, no, that is what it says. And if you have confusion about that, just refer to the Federalist Papers. Federalist Papers are not legally binding. I'm like, okay. I was like, okay, that's interesting, because they're considered primary papers. You're correct. They're not legal documents, but they are considered primary papers, and they are used as reference by the Supreme Court in almost all of their rulings. And the fact is that the reason the Supreme Court has never addressed the Second Amendment straight on, in other words, the question of the Second Amendment, is because the Federalist Papers make it very clear what the Second Amendment entails and who it covers.
Yes.
I said, and it covers the population. And it's there to, 1, defend our borders, 2, to keep us from a corrupt government.
Yes.
And if you look at the notes from the Constitutional Convention, there are so many things that are explained verbatim in those notes, and everybody says, oh, you can't go by those. And then once you beat them on that, then they say, well, that was so many years ago, it doesn't apply to today's society.
Right.
Okay, you guys can have your muskets. It's like, no. Arms is not defined as a musket. Arms are arms.
Yes.
And it's like comma to the people, what does the comma mean? And that's why language is so important. And people don't realize how important it is. They got rid of cursive. They don't explain, why punctuation who it's giving authority to in a sentence. And then they try to twist it and manipulate it. And to the dumb people, they don't get it. So they go along with it. Well, it kind of makes sense. No, it doesn't make sense. You're just an idiot.
It becomes, I'm sorry, but I make no apologies. I have to make a Star Trek reference. It becomes the Id Plebnista, if all of you know what that reference is.
Yep.
So,
but in fairness, I have to defend the younger people a little bit. A lot of this is not their fault. They were not taught cursive, number one. Number two, the version of the Constitution of the amendments that they're taught is incredibly condensed. Like it's one or two sentences, if that. They don't ever get taught the full amendment. I mean, so the confusion and the ability to mislead them is in play in their textbooks.
Yes.
So that's problematic. And, that's the teachers' unions, and that needs to be stopped.
So, Scotty, what do you think Spock would say right now?
Something about humans, always illogical, always this and that and the other thing. How you survived out of your dark ages astounds me. There was a line like that in one of the shows with him. And so that's what I think Spock would say. Is there a point you wanted to make with that?
My point is just simply everything is about emotion. Nothing is about logic. And you know what? People's feelings got to get hurt. I'm telling you, pain is the best teacher, and people need to go through some real pain in order to learn what they're doing wrong. And I try not to be that way, but it is what it is.
Yes, I agree.
Yep, Nancy? I agree too. No, I'm with him on that. I mean, you don't know a charcoal is hot unless you touch it. So yeah, he's right. The lesson has to be learned, and I'm not. In fact, I spent all Saturday night trying to talk Raphael out of looking up militias, but I'm not a person who believes in intentional violence, but in the same respect, I believe that we really do people need to stop sitting on the sidelines.
Yes.
I know it's safe for a lot of, especially conservatives. They tend to be quieter. They tend to not want to get into the fray because they don't like doing battle with frothing harridans.
Mm-hmm.
They don't. And
There's a guy that has been in prison from January 6th for 3 years and never been in front of a judge. Not once in 3 years. And he's an American.
Yep. Because they have him under the NDAA. That's why. Because he's considered a terrorist.
Exactly. Yep. So he has no rights. And somehow, in like that situation, now dumb people won't know this, but everybody has due process. Every single person, if you're an American, you have due process. They can't take that away from you. But Americans sit their ass on the sidelines and do nothing and then they'll start bitching about it as soon as it touches somebody that they love and care about. Then they'll say something.
Or their pocketbook.
Right.
As soon as it's a realization with it, like right now you're hearing everybody screech about groceries. Well, they're just noticing now that there's a problem with the expense of groceries. And it's like, where were you 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago when what you were buying went from a full bag to a bunch of air and a couple of potato chips? Because that's when we're really getting gouged. And now it's just like it's free reign. And, we've got an administration in office right now saying everything's great. The economy's great. And those of us who know better are looking at it going, it's going to pop. It's going to pop. Holy crap. It's going to be really bad when it pops.
By the way, I have in front of me, because it's important and it's pertinent to this conversation, the dialogue between Kirk, Spock, and Dr. McCoy on this particular thing that Jeremy was referencing. Dr. McCoy says it's at the end of the episode called Mirror, Mirror. If any of you are Star Trek aficionados like I am, Mirror, Mirror was the one where the transporter malfunction put them into a string theory, an opposite universe. 3 of them in the transporter, 4 of them, I think. And It's the one where Spock had the goatee and the mustache. They ended up in a universe where the Federation is evil. They're like the Klingon Empire in this universe. Well, at the end, they're doing their regular recap at the end of the episode, and McCoy said, talking of Spock, he said, Jim, I think I liked him with a beard better. It gave him character. Of course, almost any change would be a distinct improvement. And Kirk says, what worries me is the easy way his counterpart fitted into that other universe. I always thought Spock was a bit of a pirate at heart. And Spock says, countering them both with his Vulcan sense of humor, he said, indeed, gentlemen, may I point out that I had an opportunity to observe your counterparts here quite closely. They were brutal, savage, unprincipled, uncivilized, treacherous, in every way splendid examples of Homo sapiens, the very flower of humanity. I found them quite refreshing. And McCoy says, I'm not sure, but I think we've been insulted. Oh, no, Kirk said that. McCoy said, I'm sure. So there you go. That is the take on that. So.
Dang, that was a long take.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it?
It was worth it. It was a good one.
It was well worth it. It was Star Trek. So, we got Professor Bauer in here. Let's bring him in.
Robert.
How you doing, Professor? Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you very much.
We raise a cup of your elderliness.
I would.
I will not exploit your. What was it Reagan said?
I will not bring the advanced of my opponent into the conversation.
Yeah. Yes.
Something
your
like
youth
that,
and
yes.
inexperience. Yes.
Youth and inexperience. Yes.
Hmm.
So thank you very much.
Punching some people in the nose or what?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I prefer to knock on noggins.
Nice.
Sure, why not?
No. Robert is like the king of alliteration. I don't think I have ever met anybody more proficient in alliteration than Robert Bauer.
Well, thank you, my dear. It's simply the result of many years of being an aspiring, cunning linguist.
I'll tell you what's awesome about Professor. When you're in the radio world and you're really tired and you need a great show, but you don't feel like talking very much, you're like, God damn it, let's see if I can get Professor on here because I won't have to talk at all.
Come on, Professor, call in. I'm done.
I must be the dunce in the crowd. I have to be the total dunce because I'll sit there and talk to him all night. I mean, we could do a 4-hour show and be like, oh, it's been 4 hours already?
Well, see, as everybody knows that's a regular listener to the show, Nancy, is Professor Bauer generally calls in toward the end of the show when we are just about ready to wrap up. I know, Professor, no offense, there are times I look at the clock and I go, oh, I can maybe sign out on time. I have not seen Bauer yet tonight. And then he calls in. It's almost like he's psychic or something. He calls in like, don't ask him any questions, people. He'll go on.
You have to listen to him over and over again. So, 10,000 views and 200 of them are mine because I'm trying to soak in what he's saying.
Right.
That's my secret.
Robert, I have a question for you.
Yes, dear.
Oops, sorry, that was my chihuahua barking at me. Okay, so between you and I, and you're going to know exactly where my brain's going with this, what do you think the odds are of a Blue Beam event in the next couple of weeks?
Oh, well, what kind of event did you say, Nancy?
Blue Beam.
Blue Beam?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Blue Beam, the holographic projection technology.
Oh, right.
Okay. I know what that is.
Yep.
So if you asked me the beginning of the year, I would say, no, they're not stupid enough. And I don't think they can fool enough people to pull that off successfully and get where they're going. But then that's in spite of the fact that their track record is every time. And I mean, whoever's doing all the behind the scenes and the up on, pulling the strings and all this shit. They don't plan well. They execute, they come up with give them an A for the COVID and some of the other shit that they've pulled, but they've slowly over particularly the last 4 years, and it's been accelerating, they've just stepped on their foot while they were shooting them, stepped on their dick while they were shooting themselves in the foot. It has been a hysterical theater of incompetence and bullshit. So having said that, and that's why I use that to give you the reason why I thought at the beginning of the year, I doubt it. At this point, they've gotten so desperate, and there is so little time for any of what has been put in place for it to stay in place. It's literally at a point where it's all broken, as I've rambled on ad nauseum about. Everything is broken. So that's why there's all this chaos, aside from the people that are in it that broke it. But it all has to be replaced. So when you get to that point, you've got nothing else in your bag but the stuff that you look at it, you're sure you're going to try to pull that off? You sure that might work? Because nothing else you've done has worked. You've caused chaos. But the interesting thing is from the web bots, from Cliff and the boys over at Future Forecasting, as well as a number of psychics, tarot readers, scryers. I think I've even read some stuff from some dowsers. Everybody's picking up an extreme energetic event, a set of frequencies of something that appears to be about ready to go off. Now, it could be that Saturday night may have fulfilled that. It was supposed to be from July 10th to 20th and the 15th, today, my birthday, being the peak. And so I'm sitting back naturally, and I'm sitting back, I'm going, I think I need to pay attention a little bit here and see what's going on. And I wouldn't be surprised if they try to pull off something with the blue beam type technology. I don't know that it's what they have now. I think is another gen of it, and it's probably based more on the microwaves as opposed to the light waves that they were using before.
Yes.
And since they've implemented a great deal of microwave devices across the entire country, from the cell phone to the internet, the ability to have that reach is much better. So it gives it kind of, in my mind, a little more credibility that there is a possibility of it.
Hang on a second, Professor. Jeremy, I think I'm getting a little feedback from your mic.
You may be. Is that any better or no?
I put you on mute for a second and it went away, but
I'm sitting outside. You probably hear the bugs in the background. I can jump off here.
I think it's you, but I'm not positive of that. I hear talking in the background, or it's either
I think it was Jeremy. Yeah, I think it was Jeremy.
Okay.
Yeah, I got one question before I jump off. The NATO admiral said that if there was an uprising in America, there's 346 NATO sites here, and it would be quelled. I was just wondering what your guys' opinion on that was.
There may be some NATO sites, but I don't think they have a snowball's chance in Hawaii of anybody taking any control over the populace that is currently getting seriously jacked and juiced. The psychology of the people that are what they would call themselves patriots, or in some way, shape, or form, but the juice that those folks have got right now, and the lack of juice on the opposition side, and to the point of just self-implosion, is a very significant energetic turning point, in my opinion.
Yes.
So I
would say to NATO, you stay the fuck out of my country.
Well, NATO's falling apart. Yeah, you seen what's going on over there in the EU and those countries and the elections and shit? There's more weird shit. You think our stuff is screwed up, which it is. Ours is complicated. Theirs is complex. Theirs is this whole, you got all these different parties and all this different shit, negotiation and team building and alliance building and all this other shit in order to have control over the country. And all of it's just up in arms over there. Everybody, the whole French thing is turned into a whole bunch of questions. This looks eerily familiar to what we saw happen about 4 years ago across the pond.
And may I say to Travis, thank you, most honorable Travis, for that input.
Yeah. So I don't think, Jeremy, that if there was if something were to kick off like that, I think they'd think twice and they'd realize it'd be futile. But if they did, I think it would be repelled very quickly.
Yes.
I think I think NATO was part of the plan originally with the deep state. I think that hit the crapper in a huge way when Trump went really hot and heavy on NATO.
Yes.
And kind of opened up to the people as to the disparagement when it comes to the amounts contributed versus what this country has been raked for. And a lot of MAGA went very anti-NATO, saw it for what it was and said, no, this is ridiculous. So it became almost like between the UN and NATO, what color helmet can we hit tomorrow was kind of the ideology moving on from that part. So, yeah.
I saw somebody just a week or two ago was commenting on the whole thing about Trump and NATO, and he wants to shut down NATO. And I said, no, he doesn't. All he said was, if your country is not going to pay for your contribution, we're not coming first to your place. You know, it's we'll cover the people that take care of their bills here. And now there's a part of that where somebody say, oh, that's so inhumane. No, it's not. These are nations, not people living in hovels somewhere. It's a nation.
And to that point, and also, I'm sorry, Scotty, what Jeremy, I think he's still listening. He's in the chat, I guess. One of the things he said earlier that I was walking by and I went, oh, I got to jump in and say something about that. Because you know, all I need is a little shiny object. And all of a sudden I got to say something about that. Nickel. Yeah, here we go. Fire that monkey up.
Yeah.
So what Jeremy was talking about was the language and how the words and the way that people are using them, and how they've not only manipulated and screwed them up, but they've weaponized them. And that is the reason for that, in my view, from the model that I use to define the reality I inhabit. That is that language is the operating system of the mind. The words, the symbols, the sounds all have meaning. They have their own frequency and vibration. And when you take those things and make them into words and give that word a definition, then you take a bunch of words and you make a sentence, and pretty soon you've got a tome of some belief system, some way of the universe, a fictional novel. Doesn't matter. It's all coming out. It's words and language are the operating system of the mind. If you manipulate them properly, like I give them an A+ for dropping the COVID crap. I mean, this is, you look at it and you go, okay, well, what's the most effective way to see how people will react all at the same time? Well, the easiest thing is kind of a silent, invisible killer that you don't know where it is, where it comes from, who's got it and who don't.
Right.
That's fear factor A+.
Yes.
So they dropped that and they saw that the capitulation, there was probably, I think, 80, maybe 90% of the globe acquiesced to their requests. Everybody shut down. And so they saw the global reaction, the mental reaction that people had. It turns out it was the majority. It was not only bullshit, it was purposely done bullshit.
Yes.
So it wasn't some organic, just it escaped, and all that narrative at the beginning was complete bullshit. And it's been proven now. You can fact check whatever you want. And why are there so many suits? Why are all the why are all these statistics that point to a very unexpected and very painful rollout, execution, management? They can't do that shit well. That's where they get an F. That's where it doesn't matter if it's policies or, you know, something to do with the social constructs of identity and gender and all this other stuff that they've thrown in there. It's all been carefully crafted and curated to cause confusion in the conversation. The conversation in your mind, the conversation among other carbon-based units, that dialogue has been polluted by a bunch of turds and shit.
I agree.
That is why these people, in my opinion, they get fomented. They get delusional. They hoax themselves with their own hoaxes. Yep. I mean, there is there is a mental illness that's afoot because of the conditioning, not only of the words and the language. The food industry has been killing people for decades. All the weird ailments and conditions that people have got now, all came and when they started doing the majority of the processed foods. A lot of interesting ingredients. Look at it yourself, but there is some serious questions going on there. Well, that's one side of it. Well, when you get these ailments from eating this processed polluted food, you all of a sudden have conditions that require medicine. You think you might need a pill for this, a pill for that. Pretty soon you have pills for pills. And you're looking at it and you're going, well, I have this kind of rash thing and I'm thinking it might go away, but let me see what they got out there. Well, we've got Skin Goes Nice. Here, you put some Skin Goes Nice on there and it'll go away. Well, what's in that? Well, there's all kinds of things in there that are really, really not good for you. Mercury, I can't think of thiamyethide or something like that. But
you're talking about Skin So Soft?
I'm just
Skin
a name
So
I made up for a pharmaceutical.
Oh, there's
My
a Skin
point
So
is,
Soft that everybody used for bug spray to smell.
Yeah, no. I'm talking hypothetical. Basically, the way that what's happened is the food industry has poisoned people. The pharmaceutical industry is giving them things for the poison that have side effects that are worse than the original condition you got from the bad food.
Yep.
But it's a vicious cycle. I mean, it is, and it's been at play for 2 to 3 decades at least.
Well, it's like sunscreen.
By the way, Travis Thorpe said here, I was going to go to bed about 20 minutes ago, but as a birthday present to our friend Bauer, I'm going to let him put me to sleep.
No, but I mean, an example with what Robert's saying is like sunscreen, suntan lotion. A lot of the ingredients in suntan lotion can actually cause cancer. It makes it worse. I mean, and people don't realize your best bet is to use beeswax or something like that to try to keep your skin from getting overexposed. But even then, they say that you really shouldn't even try to prevent it. The sun is good for your skin in a lot of ways. A lot of these cancers are caused by the lotions you're using.
Right.
So and I've said that too. I said your skin creams and all that, there's so many chemicals. Your shampoo, your hair shampoo, ridiculous amounts of chemicals. I mean, not good for you.
Right.
Thanks,
and I don't know
Sarah.
enough about that stuff. I write, I go, right. Because, Rainey, she goes through all this stuff. She looks at all the health stuff and she goes, that thing you're reading right now, you know what that can do to you? And I go, don't tell me, please. I'm just eating it. I don't eat it every day and I don't eat it even monthly. Just let me enjoy my egg roll or whatever it was. So
as long as it wasn't a Twinkie, because we all know Twinkies will be here long after the cockroaches
That's
are dead.
right. At least they won't be in my system in perpetuity.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, thanks, Mike. That was that thimerosal. Yeah, so I was trying to dig that out.
There it is.
It got
Mike Mook is a good friend of mine here in town, locally here. So
unbelievable.
So back to the whole thing. You started the show about spread too thin. Was that the title?
Yes.
Yeah. So from an observational perspective, okay, I'm looking at this thing, trying to look at any kind of any data point that, and then look for any trends in those data points and any directionally specific way in which they're going. And you have the narrative, but this time you had more people with their own recording devices and for an event like this than ever in our history. You see what I'm saying?
You're talking about the event that took place Saturday. Yes.
Yeah. Saturday.
Yeah.
So
there's
this
more
event,
video of this than anything else.
There's more data and information from independent sources for something of this magnitude than ever before. And real quick, Nancy, back to your point about your question about Bluebeam. I don't know. The only thing that would really make that work is if it was mass enough and had enough recording of it, like this event.
Well, that's it. And
in order for it to be effective.
It would be, where would they do it? To what populace would they expose it?
It would be a sky event, and it would be, if you follow Bluebeam, because I've actually read what Serge Manasse wrote and what he described, and there were four pillars of Bluebeam, and the last one is a new financial system introduced. And I'm like, oh crap. I mean, I'm looking at the one of them was, of course, the second coming of Christ. That was what was the hologram was supposed to be a religious hologram. And it was supposed to unite. It was supposed to, each culture that it appeared to, it would be tailored to that culture, whatever the culture was. And it would be a message for them to all unite under this one religious character in the New World Order. And basically, in his writings, he has examples.
Antichrist.
Right, basically. But in his writings, he has examples back in the 1990s when he was talking about this, because I mean, he lost everything because of this. He was Canadian. The Canadian government came and took his children because he was homeschooling them, and he had dangerous thought processes. So they removed his children. They arrested him for homeschooling his children, put him in jail. The day after he got out of jail, he died. He dropped dead of a heart attack. And the journalist that was working with him dropped dead a week later. So mysterious circumstances surrounding his ending. But he was very, very adamant in the fact that we had the holographic technology. He showed examples in his writings of holographic technology in South America, which made it look like Christ was appearing in the sky. Yeah. And it was back in the 90s. This was a pretty solid example. And I'm like, oh, crap. You know, I'm looking at it and I'm reading over it and I'm thinking, we've had holographic technology since the 1940s. You can't imagine how advanced it is at this point. Look at what they're doing in Hong Kong. Look at what they do in metropolises in Japan. They have it. It's so realistic. People are trying to touch it because it's like whales, you know, basically swimming in the middle of their shopping centers. I mean, with Starlink, with all of the technology we have right now,
interactive. I still want a holodeck. Hold on one second, Nancy. Uncle John Potter. For those of you who don't know John Potter, Uncle Dave's brother, and welcome to the show. I haven't seen you for a long time, John.
I'm sorry, I haven't been around much.
It's all right. Apology accepted.
I usually drop in on Sundays, but I have take my dad to church now.
Ah, yes.
He's gotten a little more social.
Well, that's good. That's
good. He's getting out and talking to people he knows.
Good. Well, what's going on? What do did you want to call in and contribute to this particular topic, or just call in to say hey?
I was calling to say hey. I hadn't had time to follow enough to find out all the things you're talking about.
It's not too widely diverse tonight, although we've hit a couple of things, but mostly about we were talking about the shooting and the lack of what they're saying is the lack of support or manpower with the Secret Service and so on. So, and it's gone off into a couple of things I don't know very well. I don't know much about dietary stuff, and I can't even remember how we got into that. But
well, the one thing on that point about the shooting, Scotty, that I also thought about.
Yes,
I think this is the last thing I remembered to say. I want to talk about that when I was listening earlier. Again, imagery and seeing it for yourself, and all the different perspectives that have been shot because of all the different devices that were there. There's a consistent theme, those data points, right?
Yes.
Well, one of the things that is just absolutely fascinating to watch is from the second he gets hit and goes down until the Secret Service comes in, and what they do and how long they keep him there, and the shoes come off, and you can hear all the audio, and then you hear that Hawk is down, which I guess meant the shooter is down, and they confirmed that. So there was, I think, some reasonably hesitant, okay, we're okay, let's make sure we get him together. We don't have to go flying off and drag him because
Right.
there's more attempts going on. They were getting it clear that, hey, okay, we got it. And so they said, okay, we're still going to secure and get you out. So I'm watching that whole thing, and that's where the iconic picture that will live in infamy has come from. I mean, that's just, it'll be interesting to see how they place that in the historical context in a few decades. But
now, by the way, it's also very interesting. Travis brought this up yesterday about the photos that you've seen of Crooks, the shooter, dead, and he had a like a bullet hole here,
right,
and one here, something like that.
Yeah.
And he said, but the Secret Service, the weapons they're using would have left a furrow. I can't speak to the weapons types the way Travis can. He said there would have been nothing left of his head, basically. So
there's all kinds of weird speculation and not incomplete data around those events. I'm talking about what we visually saw, and I'll get to the point that I wanted to make. So they got up, they finally moved him. He gets the iconic fist in the air.
Mm-hmm.
They get him down, and if you notice that on this side, on his right side, the Secret Service agent is a woman with a blonde hair and a bun, I think.
Yes.
And the big guys on the other side, on Trump's left side. And all the way down the stairs, it looks like, okay, yeah, I can see how difficult that might be. But when they get to the truck and the car, there's 3 women out in front by the door. Right. And the first one looks like somebody said she looked like Rosie O'Donnell. And I looked at her and I said, yeah, okay, I see that. But she can't get her gun in her holster.
Yeah.
She's fumbling around. She's looking around like, I don't know what to do here. I'm going to do the best I can for what I'm supposed to be here to do. But she was should not have been there. The other 2 women were also acting similar, had questionable, like, are you guys really? And more importantly than just being women, they weren't of the right size. They don't. The Secret Service does not put people shorter than the person they're protecting.
Right.
Okay.
They were all about a head shorter than Donald Trump.
Now,
so
I was on a website, or pardon me, a Facebook page, people by people who train security and protection people. And they were saying the problem the women were having with holsters, first of all, went to their having holsters that didn't drop down low enough, that they had too high-waisted pants, and that their body armor was interfering with their ability to reholster. And they said that is all things that should have been handled
ahead of time
with training, that they should have worn pants that didn't run so high, that they should have had a holster adjusted so it sat lower and didn't interfere with the body arm.
Right.
And these are people who cross the lines for military, border patrol, all levels of law enforcement and private training.
Yeah,
they generally all agreed that. Well, first of all, everybody agrees that they shouldn't have had people that height where he had to step up into a vehicle and totally expose himself.
Right.
They said that was a lack of training as well.
And with her coming in as, was it you that mentioned it, Nancy? How the one blonde woman came in, she was up under his armpit.
She was in the most dangerous.
She was on his right side, yeah.
And so what happened ultimately? You've got him exposed this much above her.
Yeah.
So. And honestly, for her height, she put herself in the only place she could that could protect him, because she's so much shorter than him. That armpit.
Yes.
Trust me, that is a kill shot in a big way.
It doesn't matter whether it was a girl or a guy. If they're too short to provide coverage.
Right. At least she tried to. Like I said, though, that I was impressed with that. But it's funny because her holster is also off. It's something that Rafi noticed when we were watching the film, and we blew it up. her holster had moved from her front to the back. When she's bending over, you can see her gun and her holster in her back, which it should never be back there. And we noticed the other girl where her holster was, and Raphael's like, they didn't put their holsters on right. He said, it's the first thing he said. He goes, you're supposed to loop it a certain way so it doesn't move and it doesn't interfere with your body armor. He goes, nobody should have put a holster on, for God's sakes.
Well, so Nancy is the estrogen-based carbon unit on here tonight. I have a question for you.
I will answer it if I can.
Well, it's going to be really an opinion, I think, more than really knowing one way or the other. Is given the fact that there was clear, obvious issues with the female Secret Service personnel, right? There was 3 women there that it was like, what's going on there, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Biden.
That's how it works.
Sliden appointed Obama's security head to the head of the Secret Service, and she's a woman.
Oh, yeah, she's a woman with no experience.
Well, I'm talking about estrogen, girl. You know where I'm going.
Oof.
Come on, am I going too far, or is there something there?
No. In fact, Scotty will tell you earlier I was pretty much eviscerating them. I mean,
yes,
and I made it very clear where I stand with this. Okay, equality is not equality if you're lowering or changing the bar.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if it's a man or a woman in the job. The job is the job with a job description. If you cannot meet the bar of standard in the job description, doesn't matter why. I don't care if you are a Joe Gymnastic, Jiu-Jitsu, Jedi, don't care. If you're too short or you're not properly instructed, you don't belong in the detail, male or female. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's a sexless thing for me. I mean, yeah. I get really pissed off with women who say equality, 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 and then want the bar lowered.
To quote Princess Leia from Star Wars, seeing Luke take off the stormtrooper helmet when he was rescuing her.
Oh, yeah.
Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
Yes.
By the way, I saw a video this morning, and I was watching it with my daughter on Reagan's, and it was yesterday. I'm sorry, Reagan's, the assassination attempt with John Hinckley, where he was shot, and there was one of the Secret Service officers that had been there, and they were interviewing him now, and he's much older, of course, and he was young, kind of good-looking, football Yale chin, kind of thing, and once Reagan was shot, he says, what I did was I hopped out. I stepped right out in front of him, between him and where I saw the shots had come from. And he says, I tried to expand myself and make myself as big as I could. He says, to cover Reagan.
Yep.
And they actually then showed footage of the shooting, and you saw him look, and he steps out and he does one of these to try to cover everything. And to be bigger than the president, and he was shot, and they shot him in the liver, I think, is where he was hit, and he went to the ground on that. He said, I thought I was going to die. So, but he made it. So, but that's the point I'm making. Is he said we had to be bigger than, and this wasn't in relation to what happened with Donald Trump on Saturday. This was filmed a long time ago. And he said, I needed to be big enough to cover the president.
Yeah.
To answer your question, Robert, it's something that Raphael said immediately when we were watching the actual, as everything was unfolding. First thing out of his mouth, damn it, DEI. That was the first thing out of his mouth. And Grant, I'm a strong female. You know this, Scotty, you know this, Robert.
Yep.
I also have no fear in embracing the fact that I am a female. I have limits that I'm not going to be equal to men in certain things. I'm going to be greater than men in other things, but I'm not going to be equal to them in certain ways. And I accept that. I'm fine with that. That's great. That's awesome.
Well,
I'm not a guy. That's
and,
cool.
and a woman is a real woman, just as a man's a real man.
Yes.
But and they people have just kind of mangled the shit out of that at a minimum.
Right.
But and polluted all the ways that people are thinking about it and causing chaos in the conversation. People can't think because the stuff that they've been told to think about and how and why to think about it doesn't make any sense. And it's coming out of a fire hose, and it's shit that you go, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense, or that's not the way it used to be, or what is that new word? What is that new thing? There's this constantly new shit that's being stirred in the pot. Yes. And you're going, okay, well, now you got some of this in there, we're going to throw some of that in, add a little spice, put some fire in there. So, but my analogy, you were talking about equality, and the whole equality doesn't mean equal quality.
Right.
Okay.
That's right.
Equality, if our entire marketplace of goods and services was equal, there would only be enough to do what is needed, what people would want. That's it.
By the way, we've got about 2 minutes left and we are done for the night. So get in your last, that gives you each about 15 seconds to 20 seconds to say something. So let's hit it.
I'll go first so I can get out of here first.
All right.
The stuff, there's been a significant energetic change. Pay attention to it. There may be some anomalous event a la blue beam or who knows what, but there's something else.
To see what happens.
Maybe one or two more of these kind of things. But
I would love to tap your mind to see what would happen if they find out it's a blue beam event.
Oh yeah.
What's going to happen when they go, hey, wait a minute, that was a blue beam event, folks. Let us.
As I said, it's unknown. It's the probability, in my opinion, is higher than it was at the beginning of the year because of all the other shit that's going
Uncle
on.
John, he took off.
But I think that it's going to be a lot better than people think, and because I don't think it's going to be as bad as people think. So while the shit, there's still the dumpster fires and the train wrecks and all the crap to weed and navigate through right now. I think it's going to clean up pretty quick. I think by spring of next year, we could be seeing some really good stuff.
I think so.
And I think it's just energetically the directional trends of where I think it's going. But so I'm a real optimist. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be awesome. 2025 is going to rock, and I am going to be there.
JP is pulling a Bauer here. He heard me say we have 2 minutes left.
I saw this beautiful opportunity.
I just dropped this nugget, and you come in and interrupt.
Steal the professor's thunder of sneaking in at the last minute.
At the last moment. By the way, I'm just going to bring Uncle John in for a second. Uncle John, we're getting ready to sign off. So you got anything you want to say before I let you go for the night?
My wife should have called 45 seconds later.
There you go. Well,
one thing that I don't think is relevant is the fact that this kid was registered as a Republican in Pennsylvania because at the time of the primaries, a lot of people were cross-registering and voting for Nikki Haley, trying to bump Trump out.
Well, he said
that's a common practice.
That this kid, the shooter, said on his own social media, he registered as a Republican so he could vote against Trump. So,
somebody's
grandfather clock chiming the end of the show.
Well, nobody's talked about it. I don't know that it's an important thing, but it's one of those things that would make sense with the other facts, like his donations to far left groups and
there's
like
a body there's a body of contextual evidence that points to him not being a Republican. Even God bless the internet, as much of a horrific madhouse as it often is. People will dig, and people will search, and people will find. And I mean, within 24 hours of this happening, there was all kinds of stuff popping up with his registration, where he had donated, the lists of the things that he followed on social media, and things like that. And none of the other stuff jived with how he had registered Republican. And, the only thing that would even vaguely lend credence to a Republican registration, if we didn't have the other contextual evidence to go with it, was that he registered in 2021. So he had been a registered Republican for, a few years based off of that card. But that, once you compare that with the rest of the body of evidence, it doesn't. It's clear that he was
a flyer.
He was joining to vote for the Republican opposition to Trump to try to hurt Trump's chances.
Yeah. And hold on, JP. Do you guys see any correlation between the circumstances when JFK was killed and this attempt? Do you see any common characteristics between the two?
In fact,
what are you thinking?
I was calling the shooter Lee Harvey Oswald yesterday.
Right.
I was like, that's our because I keep saying, I said it earlier tonight, this is an Occam's razor situation.
There's some very interesting characteristics that are common actually across the entire stream that we have of these assassination events, whether they're successful or not.
I think the Occam's razor argument will change when the larger body of evidence from the events comes out.
Well, we're in the fog of war.
Right. And honestly, and hey, it's a free country. You're entitled to think what you want to think and say what you want to say. Quite frankly, in the middle of the fog of war, as the professor aptly put it, people need to shut up and stop with the speculation, because that's all it is until we have the body of evidence. And all the speculation does is create more confusion. It creates more disagreements. It creates discussion, and that's all well and good. Yeah. But is that discussion in any way, shape, or form productive? And I think that's something that, honestly, people who take to social media, people who take to shows, people who do things, they need to think about that. But it gets people talking, and it gets people on, and it gets conversations going. Sure. And it's, just because you have the right to do something, one of the beautiful things, one of the sometimes frustrating things of having the rights is, you have the right to do something, but does that mean you should? And having the wisdom to understand when you should and when you shouldn't.
Well, I'm sorry, it brings up. I'm a pop cultural maven. It just brings up Jeff Goldblum from Jurassic Park.
It does. You were so busy thinking about whether you could or not, you didn't stop to think about whether you should.
Whether you should have.
And that's a common problem with so many people.
We've got to wrap this tonight. We've got to wrap this tonight. Save your thoughts for next time, which is Wednesday, because it's Monday. So I'm going to let you all go.
Half the time you don't show up.
What?
Say, I can't be here Wednesday. I have my own show I got to do.
You remember one night?
That's right.
We took over the show and you went someplace for almost an hour.
Me?
Yeah. You left all of us in charge. And you went to pick up your son or somebody.
I don't know. I'm confused. Scotty's froze.
You can't remember it, can you?
Scotty has froze.
Yeah,
he is froze.
Yeah,
and he's still alive. Scotty be froze.
Picture. I'm
Yeah, it looks like
screenshotting that.
it looks like he's trying to lean over to slice one out.
Oh, I get it. It's a Biden impression.
Oh, he's gonna kill us. You know that, right?
Scotty Biden.
And by the way,
Jesus.
with Occam, when I say Occam's razor, I'm just saying that there had to be security failures for this to have occurred.
Right.
So it
Yeah,
has to have
but
Oh, definitely.
the thing with Occam's razor is, and here's one of the things you're going to have with the audiences, right, and the people listening, is people who are familiar with Occam's razor, which is basically the simplest, most straightforward answer, is most
Generally
likely
correct.
what it is. Yes, generally correct. It is the fact that you're going to have you already have people in two camps. I guess you could say three. That those are just sitting there floating around, not knowing what's going on as a third camp. But you're going to have those that are like, you know what? Clear security failure. The building was outside the established perimeter for the Secret Service. Local law enforcement was supposed to be taking up the other side of that. Clearly, there were inexperienced people who don't know what's going on here. You have a security system that's already stretched entirely too thin. You take all of the technical, tactical data, and you see that you just fucked up. Right.
Yep.
And then you have the
that
other
there's no
part
doubt.
that's going to sit there and say Occam's razor is, well, clearly right there. This is our generation's Lee Harvey Oswald.
I have issues with the backstories that have come into play though. And that's where I'm saying, wait a minute, that some of this is really not jiving. And that, number one, the first person that was released as supposedly being the shooter, what was his name? Violet. And that was what I found very interesting about that report, is that came from the Butler PD. And I know that because it came across Police Frequency, which is a frequency channel that people watch for law enforcement.
Right.
And I was like, okay, so that was the first, that came out within half an hour. It was hot on Police Frequency. I was like, holy crap. And I read it and I thought, okay, well, they're saying he's for Antifa. Okay, well, that kind of makes sense. And then
This just in, real quick. Scotty's whole modem decided to just do its own thing and reboot. So just an update.
Okay.
Tell him it was me being a witch again. No, I'm
Well,
joking.
wait a minute. Scotty's gone. I didn't notice.
Oh, shushy. Robert, I love you. I love you. I love you, man. But anyway, getting back to it, that really flicked my radar up a little bit, because within 20 minutes of that press release, we had the second press release of the actual quote unquote shooter, Crooks. And Robert, to your power, I guess you could say, the comparisons back to Kennedy, well, actually, you can go back to Lincoln, because Lincoln's original bodyguard was named Crooks, which was really interesting. I found that really interesting. And basically, he went on to serve 12 other presidents after Lincoln was assassinated. But that was a link there that kind of stirred me up a little bit. And then the BlackRock commercial.
Yep.
That really got me going. I'm like, oh, come on.
Well, but there's plenty of things. There's plenty of things like that with the BlackRock commercial that can reasonably, and I'm not saying that it is. I'm devil's advocating to your statement. That you are looking at just simple coincidence. You have a teacher who's a heavy investor with BlackRock because they handle so many teachers' pensions, and then you have a person who was, listed as being a very good student, very active in class, this, that, and the other thing. It is not out of the realm of possibility that a teacher could be like, hey, BlackRock wanted to do, selected us, hey bud, you want to be in this while we're filming these teaching sessions? Or it could have been simply hey, we're going to bring some camera people in while you're teaching, and we're just going to have them kind of positioned in a couple of places in the classroom and get some footage, and hey, we're going to.
Wow, that was weird. My modem cut out. I thought the show was dead.
I back briefed him.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we live in a small town here, and the internet here has been pretty good lately. but all the time this would happen. I'd think every night when I would do a show, I think, I wonder if my internet's going to cut out during the show tonight. And it's for no reason. The modem just stops, then it reboots, and it cuts off everything you're doing. So
we could do this for a long time, but my spousal unit has returned.
Oh, I know what that's like.
I shall depart.
All right.
Good to see you, John.
I put a link.
Evening.
Oh, go ahead.
Thanks, John.
Hey, I put real quick. I dropped a link in the comments, and it you can't click on links in the comment. You can sit there and type it out into your browser if you're on a regular computer. And whatever anybody out there may think of Dan Crenshaw, the man has plenty of tactical firsthand experience with these kinds of, the sniper and counter sniper operations and things like that, working in and around it in the field in an actively contested environment. He put out, Scotty, I sent you the link in Messenger.
I saw that when I texted you on my phone.
He has a very sensical and sensible message about how to look at these things. And he brings up some really great points that I think, look, and it is not to discredit any of these people that are coming out saying, hey, I was a sniper, counter sniper, or whatever. I did this, that, or the other thing. People who say they, have been doing, high intensity security details for, eons, whatever.
Yes.
But he brings up some really great points that I think sometimes when you are so close to the kind of operation that things that are going on like that, and really in any kind of field of expertise, it is easy for those who are subject matter experts to start applying things that they basically would take for granted. Like, this is stupid. Everybody should know this. But, my kid would know this. My kindergartner could do whatever. Like, the average Joe Blow citizen doesn't know how to operate within this stuff. Your average cop doesn't know how to operate within those kinds of things. The guy out there who's a flat foot walking a beat, like, they're just not trained in it. They have superficial experience with it in terms of proximity and things like that. But most people you encounter don't have experience where the metal meets the meat.
So, Jason, hold on 1 second. And sorry to interrupt. I'm not sure where you're going or what you're talking about. So could you tell what are these metrics that you're talking about? How does it relate to the event?
Basically, he's talking about what I'm talking about is some things that Crenshaw put out about people being around stuff, and it's easy to apply if you have a very deep level of knowledge about something.
Yeah.
Right. It's easy to kind of slip into everybody should know this kind of mentality. How did they not?
To get lax because they
well, for other people, it's not complacency. It's the assumption that because they are so involved in it and surrounded by it,
they assume
other people should inherently know these things.
Yeah, they assume that this is the procedure. SOP should be standard across all the people,
and there's that too. It's
saying Crenshaw saying that they're being judged. They're being too judgmental. They were not in the situation. They were not boots on ground. They did not have intel. It was not them standing in the shoes of those officers.
Exactly.
I get that.
And that's a big thing that we, and it's hard. And I understand you talked a bit about your background, and I don't want to disparage that in any way, shape, or form.
Not mine. It's my husband's.
Well, your husband's, but your proximity to it, and his own kind of things. And I'm not trying to disparage that at all, but a lot of armchair quarterbacking, even from experts, goes on, and it's something like I was saying before. We need to wait till the fog settles and we have all the information before we really start throwing things around, lest we muddy the waters.
I rarely find myself taking a counterpoint to you, Jason. I respect the way you view things and approach things, but I like what Travis says. He says, I would agree with you, JP, except this is the SS, the Secret Service.
Yep.
They can't afford to be human. They have a zero fail mission.
No, and you know what? They can't afford to be human. And Travis, I totally get where you're coming from, man. Like, I totally get where you're coming from. Believe me. But the fact of the matter is, no matter how superhuman levels you have trained to, failures still happen.
They do.
Complacency still happens.
There's no doubt about that.
Being overburdened by being spread too thin creates its own issues and problems that still happen. So,
I'm being spread too thin, Jason, is really the point. It didn't seem, aside from what appeared to be blatant incompetence with some of the people that were involved in the detail.
Right. And that's
there was a failure for securing the entire area for the future president and the former president. Now, this is apparently not an A team that the Biden administration, who has responsibility for making sure this stuff, which, by the way, he's given Bobby protection today all of a sudden. It's like, gee, thank you, Joe. We've been telling you, Joe, that
Did you see Bobby's tweet yesterday? Pretty much, I think I'll forego that protection. I mean,
yes.
Nice.
So,
but,
so the incompetence, the failure was more systemic rather than the point you're making about somebody being in the moment and going, that individual.
But that's part of it, though. That's part of it, though.
Mike just sent this to me on my phone. The wage gap.
And by the way,
in play there.
Oh shit,
Scotty. Earlier when I was.
Thank you for that, Mike. If you're still there.
You still there, Charlotte? Charlotte.
Hello. Uh-oh.
She's gone silent.
Can you hear me?
May have.
There we
go.
You're now back. You can. I was going to say earlier when I first came on, I told you we have a mutual contact that was boots on ground in PA with the detail. And the information he told us, I told you what he told us, and I can actually send you the text exchange.
Shoot us all.
He was telling us what transpired with the shots, who shot when, and basically, I can send you the text exchange, but what he said has now been proven true. I posted on my Facebook that it was the Secret Service sniper who took the shooter out, and it was a few seconds after the initial shots.
Just split second almost.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a silenced round. It was off of one of the Secret Service weapons that was behind the shooters that were on film. So the officers that were on film were not the officers that took the shooter out.
Right.
There was a pause in between, and then the shooter was taken out. So what he said proved to be accurate. There are other points of that conversation I'm not going to share because it gets very detailed. So I'm not.
So Nancy,
quite frankly, you probably shouldn't be sharing that stuff. So don't share that.
Let me toss a nugget on the another nugget here in reference to what I said earlier about the commonalities between. All right. The JFK was pretty much staged, right? That was all planned, right?
Yep.
To be executed the way it was. And they had the control that Dallas was the perfect place because they had the right people to be able to go in and pull it off and execute it from a personnel perspective. Who and where subsidized, had part in, that's all got some really interesting speculation about it. But nonetheless, it was set up, it was orchestrated to be happening at that point. That's where they were positioned to execute. So this was clearly, and I found it, one of the things I found odd is this was on somebody's farm.
I know.
And I'm thinking, I didn't know Trump did
place where they do public events, I guess.
Right. So, but there was a shitload of people there.
There was.
And so that when you look at the layout and you see where the positions apparently were, and you go, well, there's a big hole there that looks like it could be, and there's enough evidence of people calling the guy out before he got up there.
Yeah.
Right.
All kinds of video of people going, "Hey, there's a guy up here," and the cops going, "Huh?"
They had video.
So there's,
of
I think that the combination of this whole DEI bullshit, which is basically forget about having any merit. This is mediocrity. We used to have meritocracy. Now we got mediocrity, and that is the standard, right?
Yep.
Idiocracy. What?
Mediocrity.
Idiocracy.
That too.
Brondo. It has what plants crave.
They have a whole bunch of that shit dumped in there as well. So somebody is spilling way too much of the stupid into the pot. Bottom line, the stupid is now poisoned and caused all of this stuff to become to result in mental illness. There is deep mental illness going on right now, and people don't want to talk about it. They, it's either the taboo thing or, oh, honey, there's pills for that,
And I have to agree with you, Professor, but at the same time, I have to remind you that we were supposed to be gone 22 minutes ago.
It's all Jason's fault. Yeah, he gets the tag this time.
Extended because my internet went out.
You weren't, and it wouldn't have been a show with you on here if we didn't somehow get forced to run over and have to listen to somebody talk for longer. So somebody had to make sure that happened. Otherwise, the status quo wasn't met.
I had it handled, buddy. I was good. I was ready to keep going.
No, you said let me hop on here first so I can get out of here quick. That was my cue.
That was it.
Yes.
Well, Jason, since you were the last one here, I'm going to have you be the first one to go.
Sounds good.
Good to have you, brother.
Always a pleasure.
Always good to have you. We'll see you
sir.
again. We're doing Robertson tomorrow. If there's no holdups on Wendy's end, she's got some other stuff going on. We'll see if it comes through for tomorrow. If not, we'll be back here Wednesday night with another fantastic topic, and I'll expect you all to be here, other than Nancy, because she's got her own show on Wednesday night. I'll expect.
And we're actually doing Blue Beam this week.
You're doing what about boobs?
We're doing that you wish. We're doing Blue Beam. We're actually going to break it down.
Boothing.
So
Blue Beam.
On that
Blue
note,
Beam.
I'm backing out, guys. I'll catch you later.
Out there.
See you,
Jason. All right.
Night.
And Professor, we'll see you later. Thanks for being here, brother.
Thank you. I've got a new show with Tom Goodman on the Nexus Thursday night. Then I got the Geezers on Saturday night, and we're just going out and knocking nuggets around the table and trying to get them to knock around in noggins.
All right. Sounds fantastic. I'll see you later. You have a good night.
Good to see you, Nancy.
Robert, I got to catch up with you. Talk to me later.
You got my number.
I love you. Talk to you later.
Love you too. See ya.
And Nancy, thank you for being here tonight. You were the first one to come in when I said, hey, call in. And I miss doing radio with you. And
I know.
I miss your face, and all I got was your picture all night.
I know that's because I'm actually on my charger right now. I just didn't have enough juice.
Oh, so yeah, I understand that. I get it. And my everything here technically was wonky tonight. Things weren't working the way they're supposed to work. So I don't know why. So thank you for being here. We have to do this again soon. And I love talking with you and getting your points of view.
I will talk to you later.
All right, darling. See you.
Right.
Everybody else, thank you for being here. Appreciate your time. Appreciate your coming in and being part of the show tonight. And so we will be back tomorrow night or afternoon, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern, with Wendy Robertson for Robertson. If there is not, there's potentially something that could prevent that from happening. We'll see tomorrow. So watch for the announcement. Other than that, we'll be back Wednesday night, same time, Friday night, the same time. And hopefully with some good action-packed shows for you and some good adventure on top of it all. Thank you for being here. And until then, live long and prosper.